Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to the Stockholm region of Sweden once again, and this is my second visit to this brewery. So we're going to Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri and we're going to have a look at their double IPA today. This one is called Dragets Kanal and it comes in at 8.5%, rated at 82 on Rate Beer, 39 within the style, so that kind of indicates that it should be quite a good beer, but it's kind of quirky within the style. So I'm really interested to see how this one turns out, because I did enjoy the Volkswagen Winter Porter that I reviewed from these guys before. It was really nice, so I'm interested to see the kind of other extreme of their brewing. As I always say, if you go and try a brewery, it's always good to try one of their dark beers and one of their lighter beers as well, and then you see the two extremes. So I'm sure this one will be quite an interesting beer to review. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri reviews that I'm going to do for you. I have done one before, so make sure you check that out. There's all the usual social media, and if you do want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. As always, to those of you watching in Sweden, I do apologise for any bad Swedish pronunciations, but please do get in touch and let me know some of the other Swedish beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. Do let me know your favourite beers from Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri as well. It would be great to review some of those for you. But anyway, to tell you about the brewery itself, so like I mentioned, the brewery is based in Nynäshamn, which is just to the south of Stockholm, and the company was founded back in 1997, which makes it one of the older craft breweries in Sweden. So the brewery finds its origins in the Hages Börsklubb, which was actually an organisation started by some friends who liked to go on expeditions around Europe to visit various different breweries, and the main reason for this was that Sweden was lacking for a good choice of beer for a very long time. So in 1993 the club decided that they needed a permanent venue, so they took out an old warehouse and converted it to a pub and breakfast bar, and this proved to be very popular with the Nynäshamn locals. So the guys decided to begin home brewing after taking a home brewing course in Stockholm in 1994, and apparently in the early 1990s there had been a small brewery operating in the town under the name Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri. So they decided to use this name again and name all their beers after local places on the archipelago, because they wanted the brewery and the company to have some sort of local flair to it. But they have a small brewery that they largely built themselves initially, and in the spring of 1997 they launched their first and now flagship beer, which was the Bideru Bitter, and this was launched at the Harbour Party in Nynäshamn. A visit from Michael Jackson, also known as the Beer Hunter in 2000, inspired the brewery, and they continued to brew despite the long hours and the hard work. And in the early days nearly everything was done by hand. They were putting the labels on the bottles by hand and everything like that, so really painstaking work. But they were rewarded in 2002 with medals at the Stockholm Beer Festival and a permanent spot in the Systembolaget range. As I've said many times, here in Sweden we have nationalised beer shops, and most of the breweries have to start out by getting their beers into these nationalised beer shops. But in 2006 the brewery moved to their current premises, and they put a lot of time and effort into renovating this place. They also finally managed to secure an automated bottling machine in 2009, and this meant that the super long working hours could stop, and the company continues to grow strongly to this day, and they're working quite hard to increase their range. But they do have a really good range of beers here, so just to list a few of these for you: there's the Bideru Bitter, which I mentioned as their flagship beer, Landsort Lager, Indian Vilken Pale Ale, Chinook Chinook, Salt Holman Stout, Pikla Pales, Brenska Brown Ale, and they do have their seasonal beers like this one. This one I believe is released every year in March. They also have the Volkswagen Winter Porter as well, and these ones that are in the smaller breweries, this is only a 25 centilitre bottle. But these ones that are in the smaller bottles tend to be their higher ABV range, and these ones, I'm told, are the ones that are very good. And on the basis of the Volkswagen Winter Porter, I would have to agree with that, and we'll soon find out about this one, I'm sure. But yeah, that's all you need to know about the brewery for just now. If you want to learn more about them, just go and check out the links in the description below. So we'll get this guy open and get on with the tasting. So just to tell you about this beer quickly, this one is a 7.7% double IPA. It's named after a canal to the south of Nynäshamn, which was built in 1852, and this one is hopped with Amarillo, Cascade, Chinook and Savinsky. I'd never heard of Savinsky hops before, but upon a little bit of research, if I'm not mistaken, this hop is actually the Styrian Goldings from Slovenia. So yeah, it should be quite an interesting one. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see it's got fairly similar artwork to the one that we saw for the Volkswilken Winter Porter. You can see another one of the Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri caps on the top. That's the same for all their beers, and it says on the side, best before September 2016. They've got some of these little cutouts on the side here. I think you can just see the outline of one right here, but it looks very nice, so it should be a good beer. It tells you a little bit on the side just about what I told you, this one being named after the Dragets Canal near Nynäshamn. So yeah, it should be a very interesting beer. Without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting here. It's got some really nice hops in it, so I'm sure it'll be pretty awesome. So yeah, as you can see, a nice smoky opening on this one, and you will see when we pour it just that this is only a 25 centilitre bottle. We'll give it a bit more of an aggressive pour, but yeah, you can see not a lot in this bottle at all, and I guess that maybe is one of the downsides to these beers. They are, I think this one was about 40 crowns, so somewhere around the region of £3.50, £4, or maybe €6, something like that for this little bottle. So it is kind of expensive, but they do tend to be quite good, and you don't really get a full 33 centilitres, which you'd normally expect, but hey ho. So as you can see, this beer has poured a really nice kind of dark, I'd say it's fair to say this beer is a copper colour. I don't think there's much doubt about that. You can see it quite clearly on the camera there. There's a half finger of a frothy, kind of creamy coloured head on this one. But it looks very nice. There's a good bit of carbonation visible on this one. Some big kind of medium sized bubbles there, some bigger ones sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall it looks very nice, and you can see the beer is pretty much crystal clear. Absolutely beautiful looking beer. So yeah, let's give it a smell and see how we get on there. You can see the head has just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. But yeah, you can really smell those American hops in this one. For me, it's the Amarillo that sticks out initially. You can really pick up those nice orangey citrus characters from this beer right away. The nice juicy oranges. Underneath that you can pick up a little bit of the sort of tropical fruit that you'd expect from the Chinook and the Cascade. Yeah, you can definitely pick up a little bit of that. You can definitely pick up the kind of boozy underlining to this one. There's a lot of caramel and kind of biscuity notes on this one. When you sugar it up a little bit more, I think you're starting to get more of the Savinsky or the Styrian Goldings coming out of this one. You start to pick up a little bit more of that noble and slightly earthy character, and some of the sort of floral aromaticity is coming out as well. A bit of grassy hop, really. You can pick up a bit of a bready underlining also, so it kind of has all the things that you would expect of a double IPA. But when you just let it settle, that's when you're getting these nice kind of juicy fruit American hops there, and you've got that really interesting kind of biscuity but rich caramel boozy character coming out of this one. It smells like a really interesting beer, and I don't think I've had a double IPA that's had these Styrian Goldings in it before, so this one should be quite interesting. So yeah, let's get stuck into this beer then. So this one is the Dragets Canal from Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri, just to the south of Stockholm in Sweden. Skål! That's quite an interesting one, that. To me initially, it comes across as a bit more malty, but we'll sugar it around the palate and just see how we get on with this one. Yeah, that's quite interesting, that, because to me, this leans more towards being a kind of English IPA. It's got that really rich caramel flavour to it. You can feel that right across the middle of the palate. The middle of your palate is just kind of blanketed with this slight kind of bready character, and on top of that you're getting the biscuity notes, the kind of richer syrupy caramel, and they're almost like a kind of corn syrup flavour going on in this one. You can just feel the earthiness in the back corners of the palate. I would say that's probably the Styrian Goldings coming out, because I remember the single hop IPAs that I've tried with that hop, and it's got this really nice kind of smooth underlying earthiness, but there is a little bit of dryness in the back corner of the palate too with that. But yeah, once your palate starts to adjust to this a little bit more, you start getting more of these flavours from the from the American hops. If you just go behind that front curve of the tongue, you can pick out a little bit of the juicy orange citrus that you would associate with the Amarillo hop. And also, there's a little bit of that tropical fruit. You can pick up the dark grapefruit characters that you would normally associate both with Chinook, but more with Cascade, I guess. The Chinook hop gives you this nice kind of floral aromaticity, slightly spicy. You can detect that on the edge of the tongue there. The hoppy character goes all the way around the front of the tongue, and as you come further forward, it moves away from being an earthy character to a slightly more spicy floral aromatic. There's maybe a bit of resinous character just underpinning that, but for me, it's more a kind of floral aromaticity, and the spiciness actually goes back into that earthy character a little bit as the flavour progresses. But overall, it's quite nice, and the flavours in this one blend together very well. For me, the flavour of this beer is a lot more, rather than being a kind of American style IPA, which was what I was expecting with the hops in it, it's more like a kind of imperial English IPA, but it's done really quite well actually. It's not quite as fruity as you might expect with the hops that are in it, but it's definitely got a nice kind of big malty boozy base, which is what you'd expect from a double IPA as well. Yeah, that's really, really nice. This is a really, really quite interesting beer. I've not had one that's a double IPA that's been quite like this before. I can see why it kind of has its rating that it does on Rate Beer. The 82 that it had is definitely deserved, but the 39 within the style, most people that are on Rate Beer is a very American dominated site, of course, so I can see why they would think within the double IPA it doesn't match so well, but for me this one is more like a kind of double English IPA, which it definitely fits that category, I would say. But it doesn't really matter for me whether the beer fits a certain style. My point is to try and describe it to you. But for me, it does have a lot more English IPA character than it does American IPA. But the main point is that it's a good beer, and they've done it quite well. And the aftertaste of this one, it's really that earthy character and some of the spicy floral aromaticity that's lingering there. There is a bit of the breadiness too, but you can feel that spicy character. And in the aftertaste, it does become quite dry, but the fruitiness and the kind of sweetness for me subsides a little bit. But overall, in terms of the flavour, this one is pretty nice, and it's a very unusual double IPA compared to what you will normally come across. So on that note, you probably should try it for yourself and see how you get on. But yeah, thumbs up to Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri once again. They've done another beer that's kind of tested my palate a little bit, and that's what I always like when it comes to reviewing beer. So yeah, give it a try for yourself and see how you get on. If you like English IPAs and you like that more malty and kind of biscuity and slightly earthy character, you will definitely enjoy this one. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this, I would say it's kind of mid to full bodied actually. It has a good bit of oily character to it. The carbonation for me is pretty smooth, but it does have a little bit of activity to it, and that helps bring out the spiciness that kind of goes in with the earthy character and the floral aromaticity too. There's a nice little bit of juicy fruity character for me, but the main thing that dominates the palate, like I say, is that spiciness, which makes the hoppy side of the beer just a little bit dry, and there's that good kind of boozy malty sweetness there. There's just a little bit of alcohol warmth. But yeah, other than that, very, very good beer. Nice mouthfeel. It suits the mouthfeel as well. It helps the flavours all come out as they should. But yeah, I mean, like I say, it's quite an interesting beer because most double IPAs you come across lean very heavily towards the American style, but for me, this one adopts a lot of the flavours that you would expect of the English style IPA. And I guess it's fair to say that perhaps that is a kind of style of beer that is being forgotten in favour of the American style these days. So it's always cool to try something like this that brings these flavours back. So yeah, as I say, if you enjoy the English style IPAs and you want to try something a bit heavier and a bit more boozy, then I'm sure you will enjoy this one. And for me as a beer reviewer, it's always cool to try things like this that test your palate a little bit. So yeah, make sure you go and check out the Dragets Kanal from Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri, just to the south of Stockholm. I'm not sure how widely this beer will be available outside of Sweden. I think it's released every March, so you might be in luck and be able to find it if you find yourself in Sweden. Further afield than that, I don't know. Let me know where you're trying this beer as well. Always interested to hear that, and do let me know what your favourite beers from this brewery are as well. But as always, please let me know your own thoughts on the beer itself in the comment section below. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out my usual social media things too. I thank you once again for watching my beer reviews, and I will catch you soon with my next one. So until the next time, make sure you go and try some beers from Nynäshamns Ångbryggeri in Nynäshamn in Sweden, one of the oldest craft breweries that we have here. Slanger just now, and I'll catch you soon. Skål!